Are you looking for inspiring conversations about faith, film, and life? You're in the right place. Here's the host who knows the right questions to ask, Father Edward Looney.
Hey everybody, it's Father Edward Looney, and grateful that you're tuning in again for another episode of the podcast. Always delighted to speak with friends of old and also new friends. Today we're speaking with Father James Kubicki, and we go back a long time, I would say, just from different media work and seeing each other at different things and events and everything like that. He was a long time promoter and the director of the Apostleship of Prayer, which is called now the Pope's Worldwide Prayer Network. And just always delighted. Very holy man. His voice was heard often on relevant radio with the daily offering, just giving a little tidbit for us to think about. I don't think those play anymore, but maybe they do. We'll find out from him. But so the Year of Offerings. It's a book available from Ignatius Press, A Year of Daily Offerings, and just really that daily morning offering and having time for daily prayer. So I'm excited to have Father Kubicki on. So thanks so much, Father, for joining me.
You're very welcome, Father Looney. I'm very happy to be with you. And as you said, we've crossed paths so many different times. We seem to work in the same circles. So
Yeah,
it's
that's
fun to
right.
be on your show.
Yeah, it's the devotional circles, that's what we where our crossover is. So and Institute of Religious Life was one of the things too, I know, and I'm sure the list goes on. Right now you're a spiritual director at the seminary. So just tell us a little bit about your life living with seminarians and just helping them on the path to ordination.
Okay. Well, I'm a part-time spiritual director at St. Francis de Sales Seminary, the Archdiocesan Seminary in Milwaukee, and we have close to 90 seminarians from 11 different dioceses. And I don't live there. I live in the Jesuit community at Marquette University. But I still see about 23 of the seminarians for spiritual direction every 3 weeks or so, 5 times a semester. And just today I was there and I was telling the seminarian I saw that it's such a privilege to be able to walk with them and to hear how God has been active in their lives, for them to trust me and to share their spiritual lives with me. It's a real blessing. So I'm privileged to have been doing that now. This is my third year.
Well, that's beautiful. That's wonderful. I know I think back to my spiritual director in the seminary. He actually is the one that inspired my very first book with Ave Maria Press, A Heart Like Mary's. One day, just kind of talking. It wasn't even in spiritual direction, but he, I was complaining about something or whatever, and he was a Mariologist, and he knew that I was a lover of Mary and wanted to be a Marian theologian myself. And he said, Edward, where is your Marian heart? And that became the subject of much prayer and meditation on my part, and ultimately led me to write A Heart Like Mary's, which so many people throughout the country and the world have read. So spiritual directors have that impact, life-changing, and sometimes, what they say stays with the person for a very long time. So yeah, very impactful, I'm sure.
That's for sure.
Your voice was familiar on relevant radio. They had a little bit, like you would have had to record all these little clips. And I think there's probably one for every day of the year. But they were just little reflections about the daily offering and just like what was happening that day in the Catholic world in terms of saints or whatever. So, do those still play on the radio, or are those kind of archived now?
No, they still play. I
Oh,
still
yeah.
sit down and record. I've been doing this since the year 2007. And so I had a lot of material, which then I digested and tweaked and put in the form of the book. And so it comes out of those daily reflections, and I still do those. I think what's unique about this is that it really looks at the saint of the day. I've always been a fan of the communion of saints, knowing that we have this cloud of witnesses who are spurring us on and inspiring us. And so I've always been interested in saints. And so I decided with the daily reflections for the radio and for this book that I would do a little reflection on the saint of the day or on the season of the year. as a way of starting our day off, and then to take either a prayer from that saint or a prayer inspired by that saint, and to use that as a way of making an offering of our day one day at a time.
Now, is it kind of connected with the notion of the morning offering? So a year of daily offerings. So every day making that morning offering, because that's something that the Apostleship of Prayer, the Pope's Worldwide Prayer Network, really promotes, is the morning offering and praying for the Holy Father and his intentions and everything like that. So is there a link between the two with the book?
Oh, very much so. In fact, the dedication of the book is to my brother Jesuits, from whom, as a high school student, I learned about the morning offering. So when I went to the Jesuit high school in Milwaukee, we would get a leaflet from the Apostleship of Prayer, now known as the Pope's Worldwide Prayer Network, and it had the daily offering, the morning offering prayer there. And I began praying that every morning. I do so to this day. As soon as I wake up, before I get out of bed, I pray the morning offering, offering my whole day to the Lord. And so that was really the inspiration for this book and for those radio reflections.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. So why the morning offering? Who came up with it? You know, why is it so significant? Why do so many people pray it?
Well, I'm sure it goes way back, and you could say the inspiration for it is from St. Paul in his letter to the Romans, chapter 12, verse 1, where he says, offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God, your spiritual worship. And the idea of that is we offer ourselves with Jesus at the Mass to the Father, but then we have to go forth from Mass and live the offering we've made. And it was in the 1800s that a Jesuit spiritual director had a group of seminarians that were very excited. They wanted to be out on the missions, serving our Lord, spreading the gospel in India and other places. And he told them, look, don't wait to be a missionary. Be an apostle of prayer and make an offering of your whole day for the spread of the gospel. Well, the idea caught on because it gave them a sense of purpose and meaning at a time in their lives when they felt they were just spinning their wheels and they weren't really serving the Lord through their studies. And then from that, I think we got the traditional morning offering prayer.
Yeah, and so it emphasizes uniting our day to that of the Sacred Heart of Jesus and the Immaculate Heart of Mary. So it's both Christological and Mariological in its references. And it's about, as you mentioned, you know, when you got the little pamphlet praying for the Holy Father's intentions. So every month the Pope releases his prayer, or every year he releases the 12 intentions for the year. And so it's in a sense, it's really allowing ourselves to be united to that of the Holy Father, that we're praying in communion with the church throughout the world. So just as the Mass unites all believers, well, this prayer too is uniting everybody in a sense by having a common intention and a common offering in that regard.
That's so true. And, you know, one of the traditional version of the morning offering says, you know, I offer my day in union with the holy sacrifice of the Mass throughout the world. So it's very Eucharistic. And I think having just celebrated the Eucharistic revival, and now it's in a mission phase, this is a great way for all of us to remind ourselves that we can offer our whole self, our whole day in union with the Mass that's being celebrated somewhere in the world at this time. And to do so in union with millions of people around the world who are making that same offering. And so it's a great way of reminding ourselves of the universality of the church. And no matter how we may be feeling alone, we're not alone because we're joined in the communion of saints with those who've gone before us and also those who are fighting the good fight on earth.
Yeah, one of the things you mentioned is that, you know, in the daily offering, it's in your book, you're focusing on some of the saints. You love the saints and their stories, and you know, you have a kindred spirit here. I like to consider myself a public relations specialist for the saints. I think it's great that we need to tell their stories. We have to promote them. We have to get people asking their prayers of intercession. You know, my life has been so deeply impacted by the witness of the saints and by their prayers and by their writings. Like I'll read their writings and they'll just challenge me. So I just know the value of them and how they've made me a better believer, disciple, priest, all of that. So, as you have a daily, a year of daily offerings and you go through the saints, which saint maybe calls out to you the most? And maybe let's exclude Saint Ignatius. You're a son of Saint Ignatius, so that would be the easy one, right? And maybe Saint Francis Xavier would be another one. But yeah, I
Sure.
guess which saint do you? Which saint or saints? You can do like a holy trinity of saints if you want.
Well, I love that. I love the different saints, and in different ways they all inspire me. I was once asked this question as well, and who came to my mind first was a beatified Jesuit. He hasn't been canonized yet, but Blessed Miguel Pro, who was a martyr in during the persecutions in Mexico, and he himself had a great devotion to our Lord and our Blessed Mother. When he went before the firing squad, he was holding on to a crucifix in one hand and his rosary in the other. And he refused to have a blindfold. He wanted to, courageously face those who were going to shoot him, the firing squad. And he held his arms out, the crucifix in one hand, the rosary in the other. And his last words were, Viva Cristo Rey, long live Christ the King. And I think because of his courage, but also he's so fascinating because he had a great sense of humor, and he would put on disguises as he was going about ministering to people who were being persecuted in Mexico. So somebody like that who is a man of courage, but also with a great sense of humor, and who offers himself with us on this particular day. Um, I love the fact that he, as a brother Jesuit, is somebody that I can turn to and ask to have those same virtues that he had.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And one of the kind of people in process, who has a cause, and maybe it's a defunct cause. I don't think it is. I think there's great excitement and momentum behind him right now. But it is a fellow Jesuit of yours, and that would be the servant of God, Father Willie Doyle. Do you know
Yes.
his story? Like, I'll tell you,
Yeah.
I can never tire mentioning his story and introducing people to him. I pray daily for his intercessions. So, yeah, one of the things I realize too when it comes to the saints is that I really see, and maybe this has been your experience, but there are different seasons of the saints in your life. So when I was in the seminary, it was Saint Therese of Lisieux. She was like my favorite, and then kind of it wanes a little bit. Not that I don't like Saint Therese anymore, but that it's not as prominent anymore or
Mhm.
as prominent. But then other saints take their place. And so, I always get that question. Like I asked you, who's your favorite saint? And I never know who to
Mhm.
answer. And I love Saint Bernard of Clairvaux. I think he's an eloquent preacher about Mary. I love Saint Damien of Molokai, who happens to be my birthday saint. I think he just has a great story of service to God's people and to those who were sick. And then I would probably even say myself, like, and her feast day, we're recording this early November, but her feast day is coming up. It's Saint Rose Philippine Duchesne. And
Oh, yes.
and what as a priest reading the little mini bio that's in the Ordo, just always has touched me and moved me. And recently I've had the chance to pray at her tomb and learn a bit more about her. And I'm going to pray at her tomb actually on her feast day. I just happen to be in St. Louis on her feast day. So she's buried in St. Charles, not too far from St. Louis. But I just love how the Potawatomi called her "woman who prays always,"
Yeah.
and I just what
Mhm.
an encouragement, like for me to pray always. and to
Yeah.
be a better prayer and a more frequent prayer, and to cultivate that spirit of prayer. So that's why, I think the stories of the saints again are so powerful. And that's why, if you're introducing people to them in a year of daily offerings, well, that's very beautiful, because they're going to find friends and intercessors, hopefully for the rest of their life then.
Yes, and that's what I try to do. So, for example, with Saint Rose Philippine, I have a quote from her that we use as the prayer for that day. And the part of the reason I have, I think, such a devotion to the saints as well is, and I encourage people that, if you're trying to develop a prayer life, you can always turn to the lives of the saints and the little stories, vignettes, for example, that I have in my book. It's a way of experiencing the Lord's presence in our lives because he was present in the lives of those saints. And it was only through spiritual reading, through reading the life of St. Francis of Assisi, St. Dominic, that the founder of my religious order, the Jesuits, had a profound conversion. So it was while he was recovering from surgery that he read the only book they had in the castle was the Lives of the Saints, and he would read these and get inspired and think, I'm going to do what those saints did. And so, that's where some people might say, well, is that really prayer to be reading about the saints? I think if the Holy Spirit touched Saint Ignatius and led to his great conversion, the Holy Spirit can touch us through the inspiration of the saints as well.
Yeah, most definitely. So, I know when a person sets out, compiles a 365, I'm personally writing a 365 right now. So your book, it's set out by month and day because you have that liturgical focus. Is that right?
That's right. Right.
Yeah. So by month and day. So someone might look at this, and this episode's going to release right at the end of 2024 so that people could pick this up for 2025, January 1, commit to the daily offering. And so, but you don't have to start on January 1st.
Right.
You could get the book on March 10th, and you could just pick it up then. And, it's not meant to be read in succession or anything like that. So that's
That's
just
right.
kind of an encouragement to people. Like, if you miss January 1, don't worry. Just get the book and start praying the morning offering.
That's right. And, I mean, it is a great way, I think, to introduce people that, we may not they may be wondering how to pray or, and to have something concrete like this that they can turn to first thing in the morning. What I think is also unique is that with each daily reflection, I also, at the end of it, offer a question, which I call the evening review. So based on what we reflected on each day, there's a question about our day, which helps us to bookend the day. We offer the day to God, and then at the end of the day, we look back and ask ourselves, what did I offer God today? And it's not just, well, okay, there's some sin there that I didn't intend to be part of the day. And so we're sorry for that. But it's also to be aware of the good things that we've done, where God perhaps may be smiling at us and happy with what we offered the Lord that particular day. So I think in that way we can be more conscious during the day of the Lord's presence and of the opportunities we have to offer moments and challenges, offer our sufferings, but also our joys, to offer all of that to the Lord. And in that way, we can do what Father Walter Chiswick, another great Jesuit, who's a servant of God, his cause has been opened. In his book, He Leadeth Me, he said, when St. Paul said, pray always, we know we can't always be conscious of God. If we're a surgeon, we have to be focused on the surgery we're doing. But we can pray always by making every work that we do, every thing that we're involved with during the day, and offering to God. And in that way, we fulfill that dictum of St. Paul to pray always.
Yeah, so the Lord inspiring every word, every action, we're giving it to the Lord, asking Him, it's a beautiful devotion, and so that's great. And so I know as a writer myself that sometimes when you write a book like this, 365, that there might be one or two meditations that you think are your home run in a sense, or maybe they're your favorite meditations that maybe they won't appeal to everybody, but it was your favorite to write. So like. And the one I'm writing, it's about Maria of Agreda and the mystical city of God, and so I take a quote about Mary and the birds and how the birds would sing to her and how they would, basically like the birds were praising the Blessed Virgin, and surrounding her.
Mhm.
So like I wrote that little meditation. I think it's a nice one. It's one of my favorites that
Mhm.
I've written for the book. So is there one out of the 365, and it's probably 366 with leap year, but which one stands out to you the most?
Well, in the month of June, which is the month dedicated to the Sacred Heart of Jesus, I have a number of reflections, quoting from Pope Benedict and Pope Francis and some of the others, where it- we talk about the Sacred Heart of Jesus. So those were particularly important to me because as the director of the Apostleship of Prayer from the year 2003 to 2017, one of the other aspects of the Pope's Worldwide Prayer Network is to promote the awareness of the love of God revealed in the heart of Jesus and to promote that devotion. So those in particular, those celebrations during the month of June. So for example, June 16th, I quote Pope Francis, who described the solemnity of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, which we usually celebrate in June, as the feast of love. And the quote goes, Jesus wanted to show us his heart as the heart that loved so deeply. And then I go on and reflect, since Jesus is so devoted to me, not only telling me in the Gospels of his love, but showing it in the great deed of his death on the cross and his resurrection, offering himself for my salvation, and then making a gift to me of himself in the Eucharist, how can I not want to return his love in deeds and the gift of myself this day? And I like that because, when Jesus appeared to St. Margaret Mary, he bemoaned the fact that he had loved the world and loved people so much, and the response he was getting was ignoring him, coldness, indifference. And so I think a big part of that Sacred Heart devotion is to be aware of his love for us and then to return love for love.
Hmm. No, that's very beautiful. And yeah, I know it's tough when you put a book together like this because the Feast of the Sacred Heart, it floats throughout the every year. It's a different day. And so you can't have that fixed one, but by taking the whole month, you can focus on the heart of
Right.
Jesus throughout and maybe get lucky and get it on the right day or whatever. So
Right.
yeah, so a beautiful little book, a beautiful daily book, really will help people engage into the spiritual life and into the lives of the saints. So it is a year of daily offerings. It's available from Ignatius Press, written by today's guest, Father James Kubicki. And yeah, if people want to learn more, do you have anything out there like a website, Father, or anything like that?
I do not. I used to have a website, with the Apostleship of Prayer. It was the Apostleship of Prayer website. Um, but I haven't done that myself. What I do is mostly I'm pretty primitive when it comes to technology, as you know, as we tried to arrange this particular Zoom meeting. Um, but with the retreats and parish missions and talks that I give, that's where and the spiritual direction at the seminary, that's where most of my time goes. So I haven't found the time yet to create another website.
Well, that's great. Well, you're doing good work, Father. And yeah, I'm blessed to have known you and grateful to learn more about the morning offering today and to get more spiritual insight and nuggets from you. So yeah, thanks so much for joining me.
Oh, you're very welcome, Father, and thank you for the opportunity to do so.
If you liked today's episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you're listening. And don't forget to stay up to date with what Father Edward is doing by following him on Facebook, X, or Instagram at the handle @FrEdwardLooney. Thanks for listening, and please join Father Edward again next time for another inspiring conversation.